Thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here to discuss matters African affairs again. I'll begin by asking how many of us in the audience attended last year's training in Nairobi on Agenda 2063, because I have seen a couple of faces that I met previously. I see patches, 1, 2. Oh, only 2. Okay, that's surprising. Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here again. Reverend Dr. Mwombeki already introduced and discussed this topic in depth. So I don't think I have much of explanation to do. I will just do an overview and just introduce you to the topic. And then after that, we're going to have group work at the end of it all. We're going to have group work on Agenda 2063 just to see how much knowledge we have and if there's anything that we can do to further this journey. Before I proceed, I'm surprised everyone has mobile phones. How many of us are on Twitter? Twitter? How many of us, just keep your hands up, how many of us are on Facebook? And how many of us are on Instagram? How many of us have tweeted something today about this session today? Anything? Pardon? No. It's you know, like the little opportunity that you get to tweet or just post a picture, because I've seen status updates on WhatsApp once or twice, but I haven't seen much of the tweeting going on. Oh, it's banned here. Ah, okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so why are we here? One of the roles of the youth is advocacy. And part of the reason we are here is to at least assist with the sensitization of Agenda 2063. And the Bible, I read, and I found a verse. Who has a Bible? Kindly read for me Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. Let me just read it. Anyone's got it? No one? Okay, I'll read. I think I've got it somewhere here. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. What is the Bible telling us? That we are here, and part of our role in the society is in advocacy. So we are here to advocate on issues. I say to advocate for an issue is to ask someone to do something about someone, somewhere, for a thing. Advocacy, in my definition, again, is to ask someone to do something about someone for a thing. And our thing here is Agenda 2063, the development of Africa. So before we go to Agenda 2063, I was asked to cover the topic of AU, Africa Union and its structures. Is the slide? Yeah. So, Africa Union and its structures. So, have you seen that flag anywhere? Africa Union flag. That's the Africa Union flag, and then this is our continent. The reason we are here The mosaic nature of Africa does not deter us from being together. It doesn't stop us from being here today. So this is going to be the outline for my presentation. I'll have an introduction, then the background, the vision of Africa Union, main objectives for Africa Union. Then we will have the operating structure, member states, regional groups, regional economic communities, current issues facing Africa, which we will not exhaust. Then we'll have Agenda 2063, just a brief of Agenda 2063. And then the Africa Union Anthem and Africa Union headquarters. So Africa Union is it's a geopolitical union comprising of 55 states. I'm sorry, my slides are a bit, I'll share them later. So Africa Union is a geopolitical continental union comprising of 55 states made up of 52 republics and 3 monarchies. Who knows of the monarchies of Africa Union? We have Lesotho, Morocco, and I know most people know about Eswatini. It's the one that almost everyone knows for all the wrong reasons and the right reasons, depending on who, because of the read dance. So Africa Union was founded and launched on July 2002 to replace OAU. The Africa Union Commission is based in Addis, in Ethiopia, and the Pan-African Parliament is in Johannesburg. Africa Union is a permanent observer of the United Nations and has a special diplomatic representation with the United States and the European Union. Africa Union succeeded the OAU, and its roots date back to the mid-20th century when several African colonies became independent nations. I believe that is history that most of us are familiar with. So the first attempt at uniting nations occurred in 1958 with a Congress to celebrate Africa Day in Accra. The OAU was established on May 25th in Addis with 32 signatories. The main aim of OAU was to eradicate colonialism. I think Reverend Mwambeki talked about why people gathered in at the Berlin conference. So OAU was formed to eradicate colonialism and neo-colonialism of the African continent to achieve political and economic integration among member states. So this is more about, this slide is more about the journey that Africa Union has traveled. Critics argued that OAU was a dictator's club. We remember in the olden days, probably most of you are not born then, or maybe you are still very young. There was a period of time that African nations had so many dictators and elections was not even a thing. And these are the people who held those positions even within the Organization of Africa Union. So then it was argued that OAU was a dictator's club, that these people came in and they were grouping together just to try and see how they can keep staying in power and control the resources. So they did very little to protect the citizens, and around that time the human rights issues were quite serious. And they advanced the need eventually to transform OAU from a mere talking shop to a result-oriented forum. So this is part of the journey that we have been traveling up to date. So this led to the disbandment of OAU and the launch of Africa Union. So during this time, there were 3 summits that were held. The Sirte Summit in 1999, which adopted the Sirte Declaration calling for the establishment of Africa Union. Then there is the Lome Summit in 2000, which adopted the Africa Union Constitutive Act. And then Lusaka Summit in 2001, which drew the roadmap to the implementation of Africa Union. It was during this transitional period that NEPAD, the new Partnership for Africa Development, was established in 2001, and during the Durban Summit in 2002, it launched Africa Union and convened its first assembly of heads of state. President Thabo Mbeki of South Africa was the first chairperson for Africa Union. So the vision for Africa Union is an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. The main objective of Africa Union is to rid the continent of the remaining vestiges of colonization and apartheid, to promote unity and solidarity among African states, to coordinate and intensify cooperation for development, safeguard sovereignty and territorial integrity of member states, and promote international cooperation. And these main objectives are also factored in Agenda 2063. So the operating structure of Africa Union, at the top we have the Assembly, the heads of states and government. And then below it we have the Executive Council, then Africa Union Commission, Permanent Representatives Committee, Peace and Security Council, PSC, the Pan-African Parliament, Ecosoc, that's Economic, Social and Cultural Council, Court of Justice, specialized technical committees, and the financial institutions. So the Assembly is the supreme policy and decision-making organ within the Africa Union. Our presidents, usually they hold at least a summit a year, and also on special occasions based on the agenda, on a need basis. It is made up of heads of state and government of member states. The Assembly is chaired by the AU chairperson. What is the role of the Assembly? They determine policies of the Africa Union, establishes its priorities, adopts its annual programs, and then monitors the implementation of policies and decisions. Please take note, sometimes when we fault Africa Union for not meeting some of our expectations, we should start by faulting our leaders of government before we go to the continental level. So when it comes to advocacy that I talked about in the beginning, we might need to start from our national representatives. The Assembly chairperson is a ceremonial head of Africa Union, the chair of the Assembly of the heads of state and government. So the Assembly chairperson is elected for 1 year by the General Assembly by a 2/3 majority or consensus. The office rotates among the continent's 5 regions, which we will discuss later. The chairperson of the AU is assisted by a bureau of 3 vice chairpersons. So this is just, a table of the chairpersons of Africa Union. It was agreed that it rotates, there's a way that it rotates from maybe South Africa, North Africa, West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa. So the first chairperson was Thabo Mbeki, and the current chairperson is the president of DRC, Felix Tshisekedi. He is the current chairperson. Then the Executive Council. The Executive Council comprises of foreign ministers and member states, or other ministers or authority designated by member states to represent its responsibilities within the Assembly. The Executive Council functions to coordinate and take decisions on policies in areas of common interests to member states. It monitors the implementation of policies formulated by the Assembly. The third one is the AU Commission. The AU Commission is now the Secretariat. It's like the head of, the House. The Commission is comprised of the chairperson, deputy chairperson, 8 commissioners and members of staff. AU Commission is responsible for day-to-day management of AU, representing AU and defends its interests, elaborates and drafts common positions of the AU, prepares strategic plans for consideration to the Executive Council and later on to the summit, then elaborates, promotes, coordinates, and harmonizes programs and activities of the Union. The chairpersons, this is also just a table, just indicating the chairpersons of AU. The first chairperson was Amara Essi. That was in the year 2002 to 2003. She was from Cote d'Ivoire. And the current chairperson of the AU Commission is Musa Faki Mahamat. He's from Chad, Central Africa. The Permanent Representative Committee, which is comprised of permanent representatives of member states accredited to Africa Union. They are the ambassadors and the member states of the Africa Union. They are responsible for working, for preparing work to the Executive Council, Peace and Security Council. So Peace and Security Council is a collective security and early warning arrangement to the AU to facilitate timely and effective response to conflicts and conflict situations in Africa. It has 15 members elected on a regional basis. Its mode of operation is comparable to that of UN Security Council. Pan-African Parliament. Recently, they were in the media for behaving like our national parliaments, throwing chairs and stones within parliament. I think the fact that Africa has shared values and culture transcends across the borders that were created by the colonialists. We are all one at the end of the day. Anyway, the Pan-African Parliament is a legislative arm of the Africa Union. It is based in Midrand, South Africa. The Parliament has 265 members elected by national legislatures of member states. It has a president and 4 vice presidents, one from each of the 5 regions of the Union. The president is elected by the Assembly on a 3-year term. The inaugural president was Madam Gertrude Mongella from Tanzania, and the current president is Roger Nkodo Dang from Cameroon. Ecosoc. Pardon? Oh, okay, thought somebody spoke. Ecosoc, Economic, Social, and Cultural Council. It is a civil society consultative body which is made up of professionals and civic representatives. It is designed to give civil society organizations a voice within the Africa Union institutions. Most of the civil society organizations that work with Africa Union are required to at least register with Ecosoc. Last year during our conference, we had the last conference in Nairobi. We had a session from the Ecosoc. I hope next time we can have him again on board. The Court of Justice. Court of Justice for the Africa Union has been proposed to be established. The African Court of Human and People's Rights was this was established in 2006 by the Africa Union Charter, and it's to be merged with the Africa Union Court of Justice to create African Court of Justice and Human Rights. The merged court is to be based in Arusha. This has not been effected yet. I guess it's due to the many other challenges that we are dealing with. I remember last year when the civil society sued, God rest his soul in peace, President, the former Tanzania, the late Tanzanian President, Magufuli, for violating human rights issues. But then that case it didn't go anywhere. So these are some of These are some of the issues that Reverend discussed previously. The fact that we have policies to be implemented, and yet they're not being properly implemented. Then 9, we have the specialized technical committees. These specialized technical committees are at the ministerial level, and they are provided by the Abuja Treaty and the Constitutional Act to advise the Assembly on sectoral issues. So we have committees on, a committee on rural economy and agriculture matters, then committee on monetary and financial matters, trade, customs, and immigration matters, industry, science, technology, energy, natural resources, and environment, transport, communication, and tourism, then a committee on health, labor, and social affairs, then the last committee is on education, culture, and social resources. Then the 10th one is the financial institutions. AU aims to eventually have a single currency, and plans are on the ground to create the following financial institutions: the African Central Bank, which should be headquartered here in Abuja. The African Monetary Fund should be in Yaoundé, Cameroon, and then African Investment Bank in Tripoli, Libya. All these institutions have not been created yet, but plans are still underway. It would be really nice to have a single currency so that we don't have to convert our Kenya shillings, for example, to dollars, and then dollars to naira. It would make things easy. And that is also just evidence that colonization is still going on. The fact that we are not able, like I'm not able to convert my Kenya shillings in Nairobi, I can't get naira in Nairobi. I have to get to the Nigerian airport to convert my money. Member states, there are 55 member states. These are sovereign states that are ratified and acceded to the Constitutional Act of Africa Union to become members. The latest was Morocco. It took a while for Morocco to join Africa Union. They just joined in January 2017. So this is just a table with the list of African countries. So we move to regional groups. So AU is divided into 5 geographical groups defined by OAU in 1976. So we have Central Africa, Eastern Africa, Northern Africa, Southern Africa, yeah, and this is just, I don't know if we know which region our country falls in. So Central Africa has this number of countries. Then Eastern Africa, there's East Africa and then there's Eastern Africa. Eastern Africa is a region. So there's Central Africa with those countries, Eastern Africa, Northern Africa, and Southern Africa and Western Africa. So based on those regionalization, which was in the Abuja Treaty, Abuja Treaty established regional economic communities, also known as RECs, and AU recognizes 8 of these regional economic communities. There are many other economic communities, but these are the ones that are recognized by AU so far. So the Arab Maghreb Union, which is in the northern side of Africa, COMESA, Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, Community of Sahel, Saharan States, SANSAD, East African Community, Economic Community of Central United States, ECAS, Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, which represents the West Africa, Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. IGAD was formed initially as a peace and security body to at least bring discussions and navigations into peace in South Sudan and Somalia. South Sudan, Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Eritrea. Yeah, so when that was done, they were mandated to do other things. Currently, they are still monitoring peace and security, but it is also recognized as a regional economic community. Southern African Development Community, SADC, is for the southern region. So, and this is just a table. This is just not a table, sorry. So this shows which country is represented by which region. And as you see this, there's a lot of overlap in the regionalization. So you see, for example, COMESA includes, actually, let me just give an example of the EAC. Tanzania is a member of EAC. Tanzania is also a member of COMESA. Kenya is a member of EAC, it's a member of COMESA, it's a member of IGAD. So there's a lot of overlap when it comes to regionalization, which is both good and bad, because it presents the challenge of, countries are supposed to be submitting, there's a subscription fee to Africa Union, and not just every region, there's an amount that countries are supposed to be paid. So at the end of the day, with the little income that most countries within Africa have, dividing that amount of money and allocating it towards this region. So because of this overlap, there's a challenge when it comes to remittances. So the current issues facing Africa Union, these are just a few that I listed, but there are very many. I think we will have a session to discuss this. One is health issues, combating diseases like malaria, HIV/AIDS pandemic, Ebola, and currently COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of progress has been made with some of these, especially malaria, HIV epidemic, and Ebola took away lives, but currently we are managing in our own way, but yes, we are. Then there are also political issues, confronting undemocratic regimes and mediating in many civil wars on the continent. Currently, there are issues in Chad, the Congo, Somalia, Mali, name them. Where? Help me name the countries that are currently faced with civil wars. The eastern side, Ethiopia. Yeah? Somebody? This side, I need two. The eastern region, we have Ethiopia. Yeah? Yeah? Kenya? Nyambura, do you agree with that? Okay, Central Africa is the most affected. Southern Africa, just the other day, there were issues in South Africa, right? And did I hear there were issues in Eswatini? Yeah? Mozambique, yeah. So you see, you know them. The other issues, economic, improving the living standards of the million of impoverished and uneducated Africans. Then we also have ecological issues, that is dealing with recurring famines, desertification, and ecological sustainability. And finally, there's a legal issue. I don't have a current update of how far the issue of Western Sahara has gone. The sovereignty issues over Western Sahara. It is contested between Morocco and Polisario Front, and its legal status remains unresolved. So the United Nations, interestingly, considers it to be a non-self-governing territory. So, yeah? You just? It did. You heard that. Africa Union just recognized the Western Sahara. Okay. So then we have the Africa Union Anthem, which is also, if I could play, I would play the Africa Union Anthem. I don't know how many, we can play it after this. Then the Africa Union headquarters, which is based in Addis. Then that is where the Africa Union Commission sits. The headquarters was a gift from the Chinese government. I don't know if there's anyone who has something to say about that. The Chinese government gifted us our headquarters. So, and it has a it has a seat conference hall and a 20-story tower, 99 meters tall. All those details are here. And it was inaugurated on January 28, 2012, during the 18th Africa Union Summit. That is all I have to say about the Africa Union and its structures. Thank you very much. So I will be back with a continuation of this session. This second session is there's going to be a lot of group work on it. I'll do the general overview of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and then we'll break into groups.